great. And yeah, as Nate mentioned, Backstage has been around for a while. It started in the 1960s as actually like a magazine that actors like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino used to find roles when they were first getting started. And like the rest of the industry, or every industry, right, it's evolved and is now also online, or mostly primarily online. And it's a great way for actors to find roles and submit themselves for different projects, and a great way for creators to be able to find the talent that they need for their films, projects, commercials, user content, etc. And like the real point of this is thinking about things from that actor's lens. There's the film industry often is this power dynamic of creators and, looking to pick and choose different actors. But I think actors now, with some tools, the digital tools, can be more selective in the process. And they're looking for specific things themselves in ways that they want to build their career, or how they can take more action and power in building the kind of resume that they want as a performer. And so this whole like kind of workshop here is going to be thinking about ways in which you can start to view your casting process through that actor's lens, and in a way that will, take into mind their considerations, and that will help you attract the most and strongest talent that you need for your particular project. I want to thank Nate here from Assemble for allowing us to create a customized template here that they'll be able to use, that you'll all be able to use for casting. And there'll be a link here. I know that the deck will go out to everybody who's signed up to attend this webinar. So you'll get access to these links and all the information. So you don't feel like you have to like quickly copy or write things down to lose sight of anything. But yeah, here, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and give Nate the ability to kind of step in and tell us you all a little bit more about Assemble. Let me see, make sure that you are the host. And now that the host shuffle is complete, you can go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah. So when we were talking about doing this joint webinar, we thought it would be great not only to give you all advice about how to cast better from Backstage perspective, but also have some sort of take home that you could have with you after this webinar. And so what the team at Backstage did was actually build out their casting breakdown template directly within Assemble so that you can use it on all your future projects. And so I'm just going to show you quickly a little bit about that. And so can everyone see my screen, Jerry? Can you confirm?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so 10-second background. Assemble is a complete project management tool for content creation teams, all in one tool where you can do everything from file management, asset management with post-production, calendar and timeline planning. But then what we're going to be talking about today is actual document creation. And so if you are doing something like casting, you can use Backstage's casting notice template within Assemble. This is a fully customizable template, so you can modify it, change it however you want, and basically just create a cloud-based document that once it's done, you can just publish it out as a link, review link, and send that off to a casting director, or if you want to publish it publicly on the web for a project you're working on. But really just enables you to customize this, add your own branding, add your film's project, or sorry, your project's imagery, and then send this out to the world. And so just want to show you where to access these. If you go to our template library, as Jerry has linked to, under the film category, scroll down, you will find this Backstage casting notice template right here on our website, and you can just click use template and get started. So now that you have a little bit of context, going to pass it back to Jerry, and he's going to walk through his process along with all of the great stuff that's included within this template. So let me go ahead and give you back the, I think you may already be a host. Can you check?
No, it still has you listed as the host.
Oh, there we go. Got it.
There we go. Now I am. Now I'm playing musical host here. Let's see. So let me go back and enter this. You guys can still see that, right? Great.
Yep.
Thank you, Nate. Yeah, this template really makes it easy and is pretty, you can often, if you fill this out correctly, you can just like copy and paste a lot of these elements into Backstage if you wanted to utilize our platform in order to post your casting notice as well. Some basic information that you'll need for your breakdown is, a project title overall, which seems pretty basic, but you'll be surprised. Like having a real project title is something you want. Again, thinking from that actor's perspective, untitled commercial project or anything like that's not going to be as appealing to them because they're looking to build their resume, to build their reel. So any sort of name, even if it changes, if it's temporary, if you have to be a little bit more creative about what you can include in that, but just to include something, because otherwise your project might not stand out to them, right? You want to try to make something that's gonna be appealing and grab their attention. You project type, it would be like whether a commercial, short film, user branded content, animation, anything along those lines. Your production company or production personnel, if you want to include that information, as well as a website for whether it's your agency or company that you're utilizing. That just kind of helps create a sense of professionalism and showing that you have a track record in what you've been doing. You want to really understand the union status of your project and cast accordingly. There's both a range of union and non-union talent within Backstage. You can filter through them as well too, but just thinking it overall, no matter what project you're doing, the union status is really important to consideration. As we know, with the labor strikes that are going on right now, that different projects are going to fall under different agreements. And so if you want to use SAG-AFTRA actors, you want to be sure that they are able to work for you, or what the additional kind of logistical paperwork, things like that, are for casting performers that are in the union. The production synopsis, super important as well too, to think about your character story and overall vision for the project. You're trying to think about it as a way to like grab the actor's attention or appeal to the kind of actor that you want. And so if you're doing a narrative project or something along those lines, it'd be helpful to include like the synopsis and the genre. Actors are often looking to build their resume or build their reel in particular genre. So, someone who's a comedian may want to be looking for comedic roles. Someone who's and wants to make a name for themselves in the horror space will look for that. Somebody who's trying to do more commercial, maybe athletic wear, kind of things like that, like giving a sense of that overall just like structure or archetype there is going to help you kind of break down that first barrier of finding the people that are going to be most interested. And yeah, try to keep it short, brief, and concise, as much as possible. You don't need to tell them everything, but just enough about the general basics of the project to get them excited and to really see if it's going to appeal to them and their skills and their talents. Payment information, really important. You want to be clear and transparent about the pay that you have, the pay rate, the expected hours, any sort of additional compensation. If you don't know the exact amount, you can include a pay range. That's fine. But, the more transparent you can be, the stronger it will be for you attracting talent, because transparency builds trust, and I think that actors will, if they're able to see that and have an understanding of what they can expect to be compensated or whether or not they will be compensated, is really important. If you don't have a budget to compensate actors for a project, just, I'm sure you probably are familiar with the industry standard of copy and credit meal, just ensuring that each actor receives a copy and is properly credited for it, because they can use this if they're building their reel or portfolio. And yeah, actors talk to each other. You don't want to develop a reputation as a creator who promises like a copy, not paying actors, and then don't deliver, because then, word wide travel, and that might hinder your ability to cast in the future, because they'll know that like, hey, this person, I shot something with them 2 years ago and I never got it. So again, it's about building that reputation with them. Do they have to sign an NDA contract? You want to be sure to include that kind of information as well too. If you're working with big brands or agencies and things like that, that can be part of it. And if it is a non-union project, or if you will have union, talent agreement, being specific about what that agreement is. SAG-AFTRA has a lot of different agreements depending on the type. There's the short film agreement, there's the new media agreement, there's a lot of different contracts depending on the type of thing. And so doing kind of that preemptive work to know which agreement your project is working under will help greatly ensure that you are like being able to communicate to the right candidates that you want for the project. after you build out the project details, then you start to fill in each individual, was it role, the details for each individual role. So name is important. I think that, again, thinking about from the actor's perspective, they are trying to build a resume for something. Having a name in some capacity, or even just a brand name, if it's a larger brand, will be appealing to them. Again, being able to put to your resume, like, I played Jane Doe in this video, is better than like restaurant diner number 37 or something along those lines, because that's not going to be as appealing. Be specific, and when you're describing the role, and like the character that you kind of want, define the emotions of the type of person that you are looking for, trying to steer clear more of the physical attributes as much as possible. You may think that, oh, I need somebody who's like 6 foot and has long blonde curly hair or something, but actors can dye their hair, they can wear wigs, they can stand on apple boxes. That's less important necessarily than being able to communicate the kind of attitude, personality, or traits that you want them. Here's one, for example, like for a role, like under the role description: Maurice Wilkins, late 30s male, English with a British accent, intellectual, proper, he is all formality, he can come off as confident and a touch arrogant, he has a challenging and sparring dynamic with Rosalind. So that tells you more about the personality type than necessarily his physical attributes necessarily. And I think that's always important. I mean, another example is I did a film last summer where I was casting like a vampire character, and that the role description was like a playful and impish vampire with an incredible zeal for life. She's been around for over 200 years. Again, didn't specify what she looked like, just, again, the personality characteristics there. Aside from that role description, you can insert the type of role, whether it's principal, supporting, background, etc. You can specify the gender identity. I know that within Backstage, there are 27 gender identities that you can choose from. You can include an age range or ethnicity. I'm Mexican American, and often when I make projects, it features other Latino characters, so I will specify that. And then skills, you can include specific skills that you'll need for a particular role. Being Mexican American, telling Latino stories, I often need characters who can speak Spanish, but sometimes you need a specific kind of accent. There's Mexican, there's Cuban Spanish, there's Argentinian Spanish. Skills aren't all necessarily limited to just language either. You can think about, maybe you need somebody who knows how to play guitar, someone who knows how to skateboard, knows how to juggle, any sort of skill that is going to be really important for them. Some things to consider that you also want to include and to be sensitive to from an actor's perspective is whether or not there is nudity or any sort of intimacy kind of scenes in the role. If there is violence or stunts, you want to be upfront with that kind of information as well too, because they'll often will take different considerations and demand a little bit more skill or experience from an actor. And then if you're casting minors, you want to make sure to specify the age and requirements. If you are casting minors, you have to deal with different considerations. Minors work less hours legally due to child labor laws. Additionally, you might have to pay for a studio teacher or something along those lines. A quick tip sometimes to get around that, if you wanted to, was, if you're dealing with somebody who is, you need someone who's like 16 or 15, cast someone who's 18 who looks 15 or 16, because then you don't have to deal with the child labor laws and you'll still get the look of what you are looking for. This is the additional information on how to craft your breakdown overall, that character description that I said, like, try to steer away from physical descriptions if you can hone in more on the personality traits. These are some examples of some badly worded or coded language. We often recommend that you want to stay away from all of the terrible isms. And by isms, I mean, racism, sexism, ageism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, etc. I don't think, hopefully that won't be a problem for any of you all. I don't think it will. But if you do struggle with writing character breakdowns, character descriptions, it is its own unique skill set. And so there's a resource here of a link that will be in the deck that's sent over that you'll be able to access and take a look at. Here's some additional tips too on how to better cast inclusively, which is just, something to keep in mind, and how you want to attract the widest net and broadest range. of talent. So ask yourself, is identifying ethnic, gender, ability, age, or physical characteristics necessary for the role, or can you think broader? Describe the character traits like skill sets that specify the role, as I mentioned, rather than what they look like. You can keep the age range as broad as possible, child, adult from ages 40 to 70, etc. If you need to specify the gender, like only if you absolutely need to, and be sure to include those who identify as non-binary if that's something that is not in something that's mandatory for this particular project. And also indicate that you're willing to meet any special accommodations for those who need them. And that has to do more with being, sensitive to disabilities, both visible and invisible disabilities. And, there are different actors working with different challenges. And so specifying that will let them know that you are an open and inclusive collaborator. Some inclusive language to include is that it's open to all ethnicities. Rather, you can rather than like you can list the specific ones that you want instead of just like doing like a broad generic kind of cast. If you like include like Latino, Asian, Black, etc. And then similar to that inclusivity when it comes to gender, saying that like any gender identity or all genders and non-conforming, instead of just narrowing it down to just male or female. Specify all the abilities and acknowledge the necessary actions or skills so people can self-reflect the roles they feel fit to pursue, and then use the proper pronouns in your casting calls. This creates an environment of respect and inclusivity. Again, just these little small details or touches that you can do that will just make sure that everyone feels that you are going to be a safe and professional collaborator. Some other considerations on how to attract high quality talent. Really, when considering what to pay, do your research and make sure you are paying industry rates that match the job requirements. You can find those searching online, speaking to other people. You just want to make sure that you are staying competitive and being considerate of what the new industry trends or norms are. You want to include as many different project types that are applicable to the project. This will open your casting call to more applicants who are looking for multiple different projects types when they're looking for work. You want to open up and ensure that you can attract as many people as possible. In your casting breakdown, you want to include the name of the creative team member, production company, or agency, because that will help add legitimacy to your project. Nowadays everybody Google's everybody, right? And so they may see your casting call or something like that. If you have your production company name, they'll look you up. They may go to your website. They may look at your credits. They may see, oh, this is like a legit place and they have enough, or they've worked with big brands or big organizations. And so that will make you more attractive to the actors. Like, oh, I would definitely want to work with them. Like they seem very professional, high quality, etc. And as we mentioned earlier, like in regards to stunts or nudity or any violence or anything like that, you want to be upfront and specific when describing the role in the project description. You don't want to throw the talent off guard with new information that can kind of foster a sense of distrust within the performer. Again, transparency creates trust. So the more transparent, the more clear you can be with them, the better. And then when you're requesting, like, say, a self-tape from a performer, you want to just be mindful of their time. Don't want to have anything that's more than 2 minutes. Most self-tapes or auditions are like 1 to 2 pages of sides, so just keep it maxed at those 2 minutes. This is, after all, self-tapes are free labor in a sense. So just being mindful and considerate of that and their time will also indicate a level of respect that you have for the performer and make them feel more comfortable with working with you. Some basic tips too on how to structure your auditions, thinking and keeping in mind with respecting the performer's time and considerations. It used to be that there would be only live auditions and you'd have to go drive somewhere and find parking and, take time out of your day, get your shift covered, etc., in order to just be considered for a role. So you'd have to rearrange your whole day as an actor and to ultimately go in for something that there was no certainty for, right? And so I think now with technologies like the way Backstage works and other technologies that are available, you can be more respectful of a performer's time. Like personally, I think a great way to go about structuring your auditions is first request self-tapes from folks, because that means an actor doesn't have to rearrange their schedule to fit your time to even just be considered for a project. So you can have them submit a self-tape and they can film it when they're not working and send it to you. And so then that way, if you do need to move on to the next step of doing virtual or live auditions with performers, you're dealing with people who are already in serious consideration for the role. So if you're asking them to come and make time for you in addition and fit around your schedule, that they at least have that trust built that like, well, they must seriously be considering me if I've made it to this step. So, virtual callbacks, I think, are a great way to view your top choices and see their ability to take direction from you or the director or whoever it is. And then I feel like with chemistry reads, if you're narrowing it down to like one or two people and the dynamic between them, those are best done in person, because I think as great as virtual technologies are, there's nothing like the rapport that two people have like in a physical space with each other. So kind of starting with self-tapes, virtual callbacks, and then like live in-person chemistry reads, I think that's a great way to structure it to make the best of your time and the actor's time as well. Other consideration is how you schedule your audition day. Scheduling your audition day is really important. How many auditions do you want to see that day? How much time do you want to give each actor? Also, being sure to give yourself breaks. I always give myself 5 minutes after each actor audition. And that's really because if it's in person, people get lost, they can't find parking, they're late. Even if it's virtual, though, maybe somebody has technical problems. Maybe you have to use the restroom. Maybe you need to grab a snack. You never know, so, or even, best case scenario, you're working with an actor in an audition and you're really connecting with them and it's going really well. You have like a 5 minute padding to go a little bit over if you need to. And within Backstage, if you do self-tape audition or live audition, whether virtual or in person, you can kind of have a whole scheduling tool within Backstage that will help you coordinate those days, where you can pre-plan for breaks and how many actors you want to see, et cetera, and kind of give you more control on that front and just make it a more seamless and streamlined process. And then I just wanted to go over some audition day basics, about how to get the most out of actors when you're working with them. Again, thinking from that actor's perspective. Greet them warmly. You want to create a fun, professional, collaborative environment to see their best work. I don't know how many of you might have seen that video that went viral, but there was some director talking on Zoom about complaining about all the poor actors he had to watch in their like rundown apartments. And like the actual actor that was auditioning was on the Zoom waiting and heard this director say all of these disparaging things about his profession and his living situation. And I think personally, you felt bad for the actor, but I was thinking like the actor also has agency there. And that video went viral. And it's like, it makes that director look like somebody who's not fun to work with or to collaborate with. And one thing I really keep in mind throughout this industry, especially, is that people always remember how you make them feel. So you want to do everything that you can to create a fun, professional, and collaborative environment, because that's really how you're going to see the best work. And that's also how you develop a reputation as somebody that other people want to work with. Also, to keep in mind that actors want to make you happy, like that they're in there to audition because they want the role. I like to, in my auditions, always have the actors do a run through at least twice. Actors are trained to make choices. So when they first come in, I have them do it the way they prepared. Give me your choice, whether or not it's right or wrong. It's with the second take that I want to make adjustments to either see how far they can go or maybe push them more towards what I was thinking for the role. And you can have fun with it. If it's the second time around, maybe the first time they did it exactly the way you wanted, but still have them do that second take and see what else you can get out of them. If it's a comedic role, have them try it as a drama, or reverse that, make it fun, make it playful, give them the as if direction is often something that I hear people mention, like do it as if, say, like, do it as if you are secretly in love with this person, or do it as if you are planning to betray this person tomorrow, or something like that. Like anything that'll just add a different set of shade to the performance and then give you a sense of what the actor is capable of. And then just some additional tips there are to reread your script, to remind yourself what you're looking for in each character that you're casting. actors are only getting like a fragment or a piece of whatever the larger project is. And so they might have questions for you. And so it's important that you know your script inside and out so you can answer those questions, because they're going to be looking to you as their guide throughout this process. And, just like everything else in the film industry, good preparation is key. Strong pre-production makes strong production. For auditions, good preparation before the audition means that you will have a smooth audition day. And yeah, we wanted to offer this code here. If you want to utilize Backstage to actually post your casting breakdowns here, you can use the code assemble VIP when posting on Backstage, and you will be able to post for as many roles as you want, unlimited usage here. So for any of your projects, whether ones you're currently working on, ones you're doing in the future, and even ones you haven't thought of yet. And there's also a 20% off the entire year on assemble.tv for any annual plan when you use the code Backstage. And so, yeah, Backstage, if you end up wanting to use that, feel free to use that code. Again, I'll send this deck will be sent out to everyone in attendance so that you can quickly access all of the links, all of the codes that you need. And then if you have additional casting questions or challenges that you want to run by, feel free to shoot me an email. It's listed right here, gerardo.maravilla@backstage.com. And I think that about covers it. I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have, but also if I'm forgetting anything, I'm sure Nate, Jen, or Gabs can let me know and I can go from there. But let me stop sharing for right now. There we go. If you have questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. And if not, that's fine too. Oh, I see somebody has their hand raised. Brian. Hey, Brian, I think you can talk now. I think if you are unmuted. Do you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I just had a quick question in terms of one of the slides regarding how to properly articulate your casting. And I saw one note where it was try to not be so specific about age, right? So 40 to 70 was the example on there. And just to kind of keep in the spirit of, being respectful of people's time, our own and the actors, would you suggest, like, let's say I did want somebody who was in the elderly range, would you try to just use more language around, say, looking for a grandmotherly type or something like that? Because it just seems if you went 40 to 70, then there's a lot of people coming in that clearly don't fit your casting.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great question. And just to clarify, it's like when you're looking at each of your roles, part of like that lens or framework of inclusivity is to think about, does this person need to be these things? And sometimes the answer is yes, right? Like if I'm, I talk about like mentioned, like I made a film and like I needed someone who was Latino, like that was just part of it, and so I would want to be specific in that sense of what I was looking for. So if you needed somebody who was like a senior citizen, to put that age is fine, because that you're going in for that specificity in mind. That recommendation is more like being able to look at all of your roles or casting and thinking like, well, do I need this to be anything in particular? And if not, how can I make sure that the language that I write is inclusive of lots of different types of people? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That answers my question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there any other questions? Oh, Q&A. I see something. How can Lee asked, how can we integrate these tips and docs and assemble in general for a film with a casting director? I mean, I think just based on the information that's in the template itself, that's all kind of basic info that you would want to supply to a casting director anyway, so it kind of just creates a shared document that is visible from everybody, all the stakeholders in your team and collaborators, so they can kind of get a sense of the roles, what you're looking for, etc. And any collaborator might have notes or things that they may want to change or adjust or recommendations, but it might be something else to consider. Gabs, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I can jump in as well.
Yeah.
From the assemble perspective. Yeah, I think that the template is, there for you to use basically to just enable you to have a format. But the great thing about assemble is it's fully customizable, fully collaborative. So you and your team, whether that's the producing team or as mentioned, the casting director or anybody, can kind of just use that as a working doc to put everything together. But then of course, Backstage, once you want to actually just start like publishing and finding those roles, Backstage is going to be great for that, going in there and accessing their huge database of talent. So just kind of two tools that can help with that process.
Great. Thank you, Nate. Are there any other questions? I don't see anything else. Do you? But I mean, of course, if you guys have additional questions or run into stuff, you can feel free to shoot me that email and I'd be happy to help you. I often sometimes think of questions after when I'm actually using in the middle of the process. So yeah, that option will be there and available for you all. But I think that about covers it, unless there's anything else that Nate or Gabs you wanted to add.
I think that's it for me. So yeah, thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you, Jerry, for taking us through all of that. And if that is everything from everyone, I think we can go ahead and wrap up.